IVM.
Advertising is dead. It's all business now. And the journey of businesses and companies who truly build themselves to not just be path breaking, but to be game changing in many ways has always been about how they learn to evolve, learn to look at opportunities, understand their consumer, and truly also build not just for the people who started the company, but truly build it in a way that more people want to be part of that mission. One company who's been able to really do that in the beauty space has been Sugar Cosmetics. And today I have their co-founder and COO, Kaushik Mukherjee, on the show to not just talk about all of this and his founding journey, but to really talk about how they've been able to evolve internally and externally and so much more. I'm Varun, and this Advertising is Dead. We'll be right back with Kaushik. Welcome back to Advertising is Dead. We're talking to Kaushik. Kaushik, we have planned on doing this one for a while now, and I'm happy we're finally doing it.
So thanks a ton, Varun. I know we've been wanting to do this. We've grown up literally listening to it. So when the opportunity came up, we were like, okay, it's going to be a fun banter. Regret that it took long to schedule this, but super happy that we're doing it there.
Likewise. And I must tell you that I've been on the sidelines kind of watching you guys evolve as a company, as the brand, and just overall. And as someone who's kind of worked with the beauty category for a long time, it's always great to see brands come out which kind of tick the boxes you always talk about. As you are part of the, let's say, the advertising or marketing side, you always see some of the boxes that you always want to tick. But I think operationally as well, there's so many things to learn from your journey as well.
So I think the company completed its 10th year very quickly. Fair to say that when we started out, the idea was a little different. We wanted to build a play on beauty, but that was heavily reliant on personalization technology, consumer data points. Because, if maybe it's getting too candid too early, but today when I look back, it could have been a bit opportunistic as well, because back in 2012, beauty subscriptions were getting a lot of press coverage. So it just seemed like a whole new exciting way to break into the homes of consumers who were not very open to spending on beauty as a daily spend or a monthly spend category. So, okay, let's just package it all into a box and tell them for a flat fee every month, we're going to give you many different brands, value probably 3 to 4x of that. And it seemed great in theory. We ran it for like 10 years. And it's just that as other competitors, Nike for one, started solving the access to beauty brands over a period of time, the relevance of such a business model increased over a period of time. So that's when I think 3 years down, we had this aha moment where we said, okay, maybe there's a bigger play there. And, But I would never forget or understate the fact that it was Fabbag that led to the next bit, and that's why we're here.
Yeah, and I think Fabbag is an interesting one to kind of talk about, right? Because subscription was always, and I remember this, right? There was a period when subscription was the way to go, especially in this space. Across the world, all people spoke about is that one box will come to you, it'll have a bunch of products there. I know there are a bunch of companies out of India as well. At some level, was there a consumer insight there which you believe didn't really kind of pan through across the world? Is the fact that people don't necessarily want to be given a selection, they just want to select? Do you think that was it?
So I think, my answer might seem, boring, but the fact is, I think, when your USP on which you're building a business is a novelty or the surprise factor, it's a little tough to say that you're going to be a very large business that will last for decades over constantly surprising. I mean, even Apple can't, even Nike can't do that. So I think that was one. The second thing I realized was, I think the market size in India, at least, was severely limited, because this was not a daily use category back then. And, as you rightly said, once the vehicle of sending a box to somebody's home became commonplace, people started packaging anything and everything inside that. There was socks, there was underwear, there was food, there was everything, something box. And that's when I think people started seeing through it, saying that, it's beginning to look a little gimmicky. But I generally don't believe that beauty never had a play. It had a play, but I think it was too niche. To give an example, I'll tell you what my realization was after 2 years when I look back. So if I give somebody a product month after month ago, then my ability to sell or delight the consumer in the second month depends on whether the person has consumed the first month or not. For example, subscription, let's say milk subscription, I get outside my door. I mean, if I don't finish today's milk quota that I've received, tomorrow's milk, instead of delighting me, it will be a headache for me. They're like, oh my God.
What do I do with all this milk? Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I got milk. So I'm like, I have this in my fridge. There's more. And strangely, when we called the people for feedback fact that, you've been with us for 4 months. Why are you churning out? They were very happy with the brand and with us. They said that, guys, I love what you guys are doing. I am feeling a little guilty when I see these boxes stacked up on my table and these products strewn about. I've even given a few to my friends, but it's still there. So we realized that, it's a chicken and egg situation. To delight people, I want to give them 4 to 5 products per box. I do 3 months of that. They have 15 products which they've not used even 25%, and boom, they churn. So in some sense, that was very tough to solve. And that's when we realized maybe it had limited runway, the beauty subscription business.
Let's go to the start of Sugar as a brand itself, right? Was in the initial days, and I was reading, there was this article I read where it said that one of the first things was to really get makeup out there that kind of lasts you through the day, which seemed to have been a need case that you saw. So were there specific consumer insights that led to, okay, these are the first set of pieces we're going to focus on. This is where we see the opportunity. What were those first set of?
So on a lighter note, whenever I say, there are these statements that sugar was born out of a need to dash. And I would love to fill the dash with serve the Indian consumer with premium makeup at affordable price, to shake up, to disrupt the beauty industry, which is all true. But if I had to pick one, it is born out of a desperate need to keep the company alive. Is what will be. But I mean, jokes apart, I think there's something which struck us as a little strange. See, as a beauty subscription business, we were attuned to reaching out to other brands and saying that, hey, can you give us your samples? Can we co-create products? Now, one of the things, and we used to source brands from everywhere, not just India, even abroad. And one of the brands, there is a European brand, which we had sampled liquid lipsticks for them. The feedback was extraordinary. Yes, sometimes you see something really special erupting in front of you. You can spot that there is something different about this. And maybe it was a confluence of different factors. That time with digital content consumption taking off. See, color cosmetics has always been a smaller category than skincare. Because skincare is care. You're not doing vanity spends historically. But on your digital screen, skincare dissolves in your skin. It's not very visible or visually titillating, right? So when you see color on skin, that gets traction. And I think that's when we saw that get a lot of traction. And we said, okay, what is this about? What is it about this product? And we realized that it was a very deep matte product. I mean, so much so that it literally used to set on your lips. And it would take a long while to get it off. It would last really long. And our audience loved it. So they were the younger audience, 18 to 25 years old. So we thought, okay, we had something over there. And here's when something really interesting happened. We actually went to some of our now competitors, back they were our business partners, and we said, guys, look at this data. We are getting extraordinary feedback. And that's because people seem to love this long-lasting liquid lipstick format. Can we co-create something? And we actually went with some of the largest brands. I mean, think of a brand, if that's the brand you're thinking of right now, that will okay. So they said something very interesting. They said, look, our audience base is typically 30 plus. Now, as your skin moves from the 20s to 30s, it loses hydration. Hence, we can't make products that are very, very deep matte because it's going to antagonize our existing consumer base. So we have to make it creamy matte. Whereas we said, okay, but our data says that India, there is excitement about deep matte. But we were, they were correct where they were. This is not our audience, but we were catering to a completely younger audience. So we said, okay, what do we do with this? And, of course, we launched Sugar with a few products and eventually we expanded the range. But if you ask me to look back and say, what was that one product which really entered 1 lakh homes and placed the brand in so many different audiences, it was finally the liquid lipstick, which we said, okay, fine, nobody's launching it. Let us launch liquid lipstick. And that literally, a lot of people heard about us first time because, okay, this really lasts long. I will concede that it was a bit polarizing because a lot of 30 plus makeup users actually found it a tad too long lasting and drying so well. But we said, okay, yes, but our focus continues to be the 18 to 25 year old. So let's just narrow down and hone that particular USP. And today everybody has liquid lips. The market has expanded. But it gave us a easy, I think, 24 months of free play wherein we did get the benefit.
And that's a great insight, right? Because if you go deep with a specific audience and the fact that now you can kind of go broad-based over time, it kind of helps you also kind of grow because you get that captive audience, which maybe everybody is only looking at in a more general sense. They're a part of my consumer base. For you, there's like a nice focused consumer base in that sense. Also, at some point of time, you went from being just D2C to being, a strong mix of omnichannel, like having it in stores, etc. Was there always something which you guys thought of, or was it something which you kind of tapped into later on and saying, this is the way we need to move?
So I think initially once we started getting some traction, of course it was purely online. And the fact is, in India, D2C is a much abused word. I mean, everybody is D2C. Nobody doesn't want
what
to
is D2C, we don't know, but it is D2C.
Don't know exactly.
Yeah.
So it used to be a hack to raise funds easily, but now it's again. So it's clear. If I'm selling on Amazon, I'm actually not D2C. I'm an online brand. I can be a digital first brand. So at least in our book, it's very clear. Even our own stores can be D2C because you're actually interacting with the consumer, collecting the data. But that point in time, we were a predominantly online brand. I remember once we started getting traction, one of our board members having a discussion with us, and we went through this phase wherein they thought, okay, they reduced their interaction with us, saying that, okay, now this company is going to die a slow death. And once the traction started happening, discussions resumed. So one of them asked us a very interesting question and said that, okay, what do you want to be? Do you want to be a large online brand or do you want to be a large beauty brand? Very different. You need to invest capital and energies over there. And the more we thought about it, we just felt that, okay, we really want to build a brand that becomes India's biggest cosmetics brand, for example. We'll never cut it if we are playing a fraction of the market. As today, sometimes when we debate internally, we said that, you can't score more runs in a T20 than what you will in a one-day 50 overs because you just have more overs to bat. So, which is why we said, okay, we don't understand, but we have to understand because the biggies are going to come online and start playing there anyway. So it's imperative that we play their market as well. So we went through the rigor, the whole process of understanding what is general trade, what is modern trade. Varun, it was hilarious. We used to interview candidates for retail profiles and we used to end up learning more about retail through those interviews because our knowledge was that limited. But yes, I think we want to be a big brand, hence it was imperative that we play the whole game.
And I think that's an important one, right? Because oftentimes you kind of get very stuck into, this is the future, is just online. And I feel that also happened largely because of the pandemic, is that when everything went online, everyone assumed this is how it's going to be. And I feel that kind of saw the surge, but I'm guessing now we kind of seeing that mixture is important, but you had that mixture in place a little earlier than that as well, right?
Yes, I think we lucked out a bit over there because we invested early and made our mistakes early. By the time the lockdown COVID impact hit us, we were already there in about 65 odd stores. We had our partnerships with the modern trade outlets, whether it be lifestyle shoppers in place. So while it had its tough moments wherein we had to take a call whether to continue keeping the team intact, which we were fortunately able to do because we had interest rates around. But in a very different scenario, if we hadn't raised capital right before the lockdown, we would be seriously stressed to wonder what to do with them. So I think we were very fortunate that just before the lockdown, we had closed a round of funding, so we didn't have to take a very, very tough call. And that helped us because when the markets opened again, we were able to sprint forward and execute our plans without having to build out a team or distribution again. So I'd say today, if there wasn't some exuberance in the middle saying that, online is the way to go, things have switched. I think that was because a lot of us were just grasping at straws, right? How to salvage the FY and its plan. But today we know that, yes, online, as a channel, I think it's like now the even worst or the strictest naysayers would know that, yes, it's a solid legit channel that I need to allocate my marketing monies to. It does behave a little differently from my traditional channels and I need to make it count. So I think earlier there used to be discussions such as, would we park money on digital? Would e-commerce even come up would e-commerce be clubbed under modern trade? I don't know if you've seen this. If you interview for profiles, you would find a lot of people have MT and e-commerce together, modern trade and e-commerce together. And I've always wondered that, okay, how does that work? Because they're very different, DNA and skill sets. But a lot of the larger companies have actually seen that as this is just another channel. All that's changing right now, which I think is brilliant because now there are a lot of sharp minds that are going to be given chunky P&Ls to build pure digital, pure online, which is great for everybody.
And that's an important distinction, right? Like you said, there are different skill sets that are required. And we're in a dynamic space right now in the entire business space, right? On one end, you got to make sure you look at commerce from an online perspective and commerce from a modern trade perspective. You also have to figure out how to build like some form of community online, which is again a different skill set from really going more traditional and really appealing to people, let's say in store or anything in that sense of the word. I know that there's a strong part of how you've also grown has been really building a very strong online community. I think that's been a huge focus. I'd love to hear how that has really kind of evolved because, there's been a clear focus from at least from a broad lens, what I've seen is that to really educate being the core of it.
So again, sometimes they say necessity is the mother of invention, right? So today we are having discussions wherein significant budgets are being parked on television, billboards, ATL. But the point is that is today. And we are literally doing that last at the end. Because when we started, we realized that, okay, the traditional, the whole much abused AIDA funnel that's there.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, you need to just build awareness because, it's a very sobering thought to think that for every product that I sell, I might say my products is different and the best, but in my consumer's mind, for most of our products, there is another one or two products in their consideration set because they're like, okay, I mean, nobody's going to not buy a kajal when they need a kajal and come back later because they need it now.
Yeah.
So the challenge for us was how do I get into the consideration set of the consumer? I mean, the whole conversion action is bahut dur ki baat, right? So our brief to the team was, do people even know who we are? Sorry, forget who. Do people even know we are? And then who we are and how we are and everything comes later. So one thing which I think we did very differently, which a lot of people find a little controversial. Whenever we used to, so two things. One is we realized that on digital media, storytelling requires very rapid creation and iteration of content. So initially we said that, we will build almost like a center of excellence, a captive agency, if you will. I mean, internally we call it SML, Sugar Media Labs. It used to be 5-6 people, mostly designers. Now it's expanded to have videographers, VFX artists, photographers. I mean, we have a 22 people team that's just churning out content. It's like they're in the middle and anybody from modern trade to general trade to, say, partner channels like Amazon, Nykaa, they have a requirement, they take the brief, deliver it very, very far quickly. And mostly the advantage also is that it's consistent. We start looking consistent across multiple platforms because the same team is doing that. Now we invest in this team and people started asking, okay, if we layer a social media team on top of it, okay, this is how we're building Instagram, this is how we're building YouTube. The number one question I get asked is that, okay, so, what's the CAC through those channels? Like, okay, what does it take to acquire a customer in those channels? I get that same feeling when I hear that question. When I'm saying, at one point in time, I used to be an avid biker and you have this really bike you love and you've spent money on and you're standing at a signal and somebody comes and asks, kitna deti hai?
Exactly. That is such a desi thing to say, but true.
I'm like, wait, let's first understand the purpose of why we're building. Social media is for awareness, right? So I can't go. This is not to say that the team gets a free ride. They are tracked meticulously on metrics. The metrics are very different. They're engagement metrics, viewing impressions, the number of, comments, likes, followers, everything. But we've sort of fought hard to resist the temptation to load conversion metrics onto them. Because see, then you start being very sales pushy in your storytelling. And storytelling, I think if what you narrate is about, buy this or, hey, this is what's good. I don't want to hear from you 365 days a year. And that to be put multiple times in a day on Instagram. So then I will tune out. Instead of that, we say, let's keep, as you use the word education. I think the word which we also heard for the first time and thought made sense was edutainment, right? There is a bit of education that's going to happen in our category especially. Because the market size is increasing because a lot of unorganized people are getting into the organized funnel. And that's where the whole premiumization of products happens, which won't happen. People can buy a more expensive product, but what do they do with that? So, which is why I think there's a push. We said, okay, we have to have a communication around education, but depending on the channel, the content has to be modified. I think one of the mistakes a lot of brands do, and in some world we also had done it, was make a piece of content and not literally paste the same thing across multiple channels. I think that doesn't work. You have a content idea, and the whole success factor depends on how you're able to condense that idea into different formats. So YouTube, the same idea will have a longer output, because we are educating the consumer who's a bit more patient. Instagram is crazy, right? You have to catch their attention so they stop scrolling. So there has to be some entertainment with the education. So I think that's been our learning.
And I feel that's a very important learning, right? Because oftentimes it's so easy for a brand to say, no, let me talk about the efficacy of the brand. Let me talk about ingredients. Let me just focus on the visual. But if you're not entertaining and engaging the consumer in modern social media, then they're just going to swipe past and go by. And also giving actual value, right? At some level, giving free value, not even actual, you're giving free value for them to kind of learn things and be entertained while they're learning.
So at the risk of sounding very cliche, one of the examples which I've learned from is that when the entire competition in the smartphone segment is saying that so much focal sensors, so much Snapdragon speed of this much and all that. Here's somebody who's put up a photograph and said that shot on an iPhone. So, makeup is so beautiful as a category because you create a look with it, right? So, which is why even for our, for the longest amount of time, we just said that, people will see the products if they're interested to see the product. So our goal is to solve how to get people interested to see the product. And there is no better way to showing them what can you do with the products, create with the products, which is why we, apart from our educational posts, wherein we, maybe 1 out of 3 posts are that, majority is what we co-create with our influencer partners, create ourselves, which is, what's the end game? Like, what does it look like? What use cases is for? Party wear, evening wear, office look. I think possibilities are endless, and it's far better than, pushing a product. Because see, ultimately, how many times do you photograph a product? You'll take a flat lay, you'll take a side profile, you'll open it, twist it, you'll run out of it. So that's not scalable in my opinion.
No, I could agree more. I have a ton more questions to ask you, but I know we need to go for a break. I've just been prompted that I haven't gone for a break yet. So we'll just do that and be right back with Advertising is Dead. Welcome back to Advertising is Dead. This will talk to Kaushik. Kaushik, I want to kind of switch inwards now, just at the internal functioning of the company. If you look at the last decade, how you function internally, what has stayed the same and what has changed just in terms of how you structure yourself, and has the kind of people you're looking for also changed over this period of time?
As much as I would like to believe and hope that it hasn't, it has. And so I think the better strategy would be to hope that it's changed for the better. But, when I look back, initially, we were a bunch of, it's a much abused word again, but generalists. I mean, people who, with high ownership, with high energy, and with high, commitment, integrity, we would just throw ourselves at a problem. You just say that, this is the problem. I may not know how to run a warehouse, or I may not know how to produce a container. But first principle thinking stays the same. If I want to build something worth this quality, then I will not take shortcuts. I will not substitute expensive quality, raw material for cheaper. There has to be a reason for exceptions. Otherwise, things stay the same. So it used to be such that a bunch of 30 people could literally throw themselves at any problem and come out with some sort of a solution. If you have to manage an event, you can do that. As the brands happen, I think decision-making to some extent gets decentralized. And it's a good thing. The risk of that is that you suddenly start seeing things which are not as per brand guideline. So then there are 2 ways to react. One is to get pissed off and say that, hey, I need to take all of the power and control back. Or which is what the first reaction was. But later we realized that the solution is that we've not really made airtight brand guidelines or recipes. Let's work harder on that, because if you tell people that this is what we stand for and this is why we stand for what we stand for, then it's a matter of whether they resonate with that. Because see, if they don't resonate, then it's very clear. They will go to build somewhere else with some other brand or career opportunity. But those who have stayed, I think it's our job as the founding team or the initial set of people building the brand to provide that clarity to a lot of people who joined us in the recent past, which thankfully during COVID, we had time to do that. Because I remember COVID, because we were gasping for human interactions. We actually blocked an hour wherein all hands we got together and we were like, okay, today we're going to cover, this is how the logo came into being, for example. This is how our moderator. And that I think helped, set content. Because normally right now, the way things are running, it would be tough to get the whole team together. Exactly. COVID gave us that opportunity, and I think that really helped.
And that's an interesting one to kind of tap into, because we often, there's this standard tendency to believe that there's a certain DNA that lasts throughout, but that DNA kind of evolves. I mean, there's certain aspects, just kind of people you want, which might stay the same just from a personality standpoint, but just the skill set you look for kind of evolve as well. I'd also love to know how you've evolved as a founder and as a leader over this period of time.
I think the thing which was once told to me was stepping back does not mean letting go. And, suddenly like, okay. What? Say that again. Say that again. So I said, stepping back does not mean letting go. And then I realized that, see, if we want to attract the best talent and ask them to, let's talk about something very specific. Let's say email newsletter marketing, or let's say retention metrics. I mean, if we are getting somebody who's a retention marketing expert and, she's going to actually really hammer down those cohorts. And I mean, there is no point in asking somebody to join us if you're not able to give that person the freedom of, space and decision making to be able to run that. And for that to happen, I have to, which is what I realized that, so I think an organization after a certain scale migrates from being a generalist-led company to a specialist-driven company. And that was a light bulb for us. It sort of went up wherein we saw that people were organically applying to us after hearing news about us, our fundraise, our expansion. But initially we felt that, this person expects to have freedom to build this, complete play in this. So it was more of an internal discussion. I think that's been some way wherein we realized that, we have to play the role of instead of an executor, be an enabler. And that is not easy. I mean, I would love to, or maybe that is, and maybe I'm still finding my way through it, but that's imperative to, I think, becoming the kind of leader that could take this company, over the next couple of decades. And I think that's the journey we are on right now. We have, in some way, that's also a pipeline funnel, right? I mean, there is awareness that's being built. A lot of candidates are now interested in working with us. I mean, absolutely illogical to be the impediment over there and not help them let us create. So that's the pain that this company is going through. And I think it's great learning for all of us.
You mentioned Vinitha. And so I always ask co-founders how they function together, how do they kind of balance each other out? Because I've had a co-founder, but I've also have worked with and kind of built a company with my wife as well. So I know there are multiple dynamics there. So what's really made both of you work from a co-founder lens, and how you kept that balance of things?
This word balance, initially at the initial stages of my career and building together, I used to try and justify this word balance a lot, saying that, no, we are able to balance. Today I'm at a place where the balance is not going to happen. We've made our peace with the fact that balance. So I mean, especially see in any other podcast, I would still validate how we are balancing. Here on your podcast, I can with a straight face say that we are balancing. So I would say we are coping. But I think you resonate with that. There is the risk of starting things together is that both are very passionate about the idea. But when you're very passionate about the same idea, then there is a risk of unknowingly being territorial about it.
Exactly.
And that is the root cause of all evil. So one of the things which fortunately we had the good sense of doing 10 years back was that we sort of broke up the idea into subparts and said that, let's accept the fact that we will always have a point of view on what is happening, irrespective of what sphere of that idea it is. But let's chop it up and say, final call, is with whom? So, I mean, we didn't know fancier Amazon words like disagree but commit. Now I know that, so I tell people. But back then we said that, we're going to have a POV on this, but let's say product is you have a final call. Product, retail, finance, you have a final call on that. Marketing, tech, operations, I have a final call on this. So for a long while, that has been our North Star in guiding that, we may severely disagree, but ultimately we will have to step back and say, fine, we had agreed X years back that this is what we do. So it's helped us at least not to be very territorial about it. And to an extent, I would also say that there are some teams that have switched. I mean, some things which were reporting to me when new things come up. I mean, initially when we started retail, for example, retail used to report to me. And then I realized that there was this whole new fundraising and investor relationships management that had cropped up, which was, we hadn't envisioned as a startup.
Oh my God, that's a full-time job.
So suddenly when the bandwidth went over there, I mean, I didn't have to say it. I mean, she was like, maybe I should look at this for a bit. And it was easy. Then it was an easy switch. It was an honest switch. And that is stayed and worked for the company. But otherwise, I think accepting the fact that there will be disagreements is the best way to anticipate when there are disagreements. And then we don't end up reacting. I remember there was one time, I still remember about 6 years back, wherein we had a very, very heated argument, a shouting match. And then there was a point where we realized there were like a bunch of kids who were like looking at us. Those tennis match types. And that's when I realized, this can't happen. That's a very long time back. And now, of course, there are far too many people taking it. So, but yeah.
And I think both coping as well as that giving that simple piece of giving each person the final call on a specific area, I feel that's so important. Right? Because don't think that's even for I think a general leadership, if you are like executive leadership, we have like 4 or 5 people, that's so important to do because otherwise everybody's going to have a point of view on everything and nobody will decide anything, right? You're going to be stuck in that process all the time saying, no, final call is yours. This is my point of view. That's actually a great way to make sure there is an end point to this. Otherwise, that can just go on forever. I also have a bunch more to ask you, but I actually want to ask you something. When you look at the entire market today, and if I'm asking you to kind of crystal gaze and look at the future, what are the trends you are seeing for this entire space to kind of move towards?
So if you ask me beauty per se, so beauty is there is a legitimacy for the use case of beauty that has almost, I'd say, been unlocked over the last 4 to 5 years. And there are multiple things that have done it. I mean, earlier, I remember in our earliest consumer, feedback surveys, interaction, we used to get these experiences wherein people used to say, makeup for me is a occasion-based wear. I mean, if I wear makeup, that means I have a party to attend with my birthday. Now that has changed to a point wherein if somebody doesn't wear, say, kohl or kajal to office, we've heard this feedback from a consumer. It's not my opinion. They're like, people will ask me, are you unwell? So these certain use case becoming more common are very interesting for the industry as a whole, because suddenly you don't need only, let's say, glossy eyeliners. You need matte, subtle eyeliners as well. You need subtle lip shades as well, not just something which is very, let's say, bold or loud, which is more evening wear party. And that entire market segment was missing because earlier people thought makeup as such was only occasion-based wear. So this has expanded the market. Second is, how do you know about products? Earlier you knew because of the television and the, billboards and print, which was only for those brands who could afford it. Now there are people consuming and on Moj, TikTok earlier, wherein that, okay, what is this new brand? Where do I get it? That coupled with cheap data, of course, Nykaa leading the awareness brigade and everybody else, Purple, Myntra, Flipkart, Amazon following. I think we're just scratching the surface right now. A lot of people who earlier, I think the age of entry is going to get younger and younger. We think it's politically correct as well to say that, people start using makeup when they're 18, 19, but I'm using makeup when they're 14 right now.
Yeah.
That is just a fact. And there is no brand that has gone out and openly said, hey, we are making makeup for teens, because that's going to stir its own set of reactions. But I'm telling you, it's a matter of time for somebody.
Yeah, and I agree. They're all using it. I mean, being a father to a 5-year-old, I don't think she's going to wait till she's 18 to use makeup. And I can only sense the fact that it is. And once you say this, they are going to be using, then you also then take care of all the problem areas you can see with that and really work on it. You have to address that first.
Yes. There are, discussions and, talks about how safe makeup, how casual wear makeup for younger audience may have a market over there. So I think things like these make the market expand. Legitimizing makeup as a spend area expands the market. Awareness, because now people who were earlier using unbranded products will be like, okay, you know what, if I'm using a daily, safety matters, let me buy at least a known mass brand. And when they do that, see, here's an interesting that happens. Makeup is also an aspirational genre. So let's say today there's a mass brand that's massive reach and awareness. Now, when a lot of people start using it, existing users also feel that, okay, you know what, this product right now, even too many of my friends are using it, or my help is using it. I want to invest in something better. And then they start moving up the premiumization ladder. So our sense is that over the next 5 years, as more people join the bottom of the pyramid, there's going to be a lot of upward movement of people in terms of price points. Because I'm telling you, I was in a market visit last Monday, and this product of ours, which is very few products of ours are priced above 1,000 rupees. Now, in that market, some Kamla Nagar, market, people are like, ये product आपका stock में नहीं है बहुत दिनों से. And I'm like, wow, I used to think that this product would only sell in fancy malls and kiosks, but no, these guys are like, there's a market here as well. So I think the affordability of our consumer is also improving, and which is why there's a massive play in this market.
Towards the later part of every episode, I ask my guests a set of questions which are nothing to do about work. They're actually to do about you, and it kind of gives a different angle to every guest. Beyond your day job, what do you spend a lot of time doing that keeps you excited, keeps you going?
Managing my guilt of not spending enough time with kids. I think there used to be phases where I made time for, say, swimming or cycling or just running. But I know you've invested a lot of time in fitness as running as well.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I'm aware that the time and mind space I take away at work from my kids, and I have this fear that once they're 12, the kids are going to be too cool for me and be like, that enough. Okay?
Yeah, we don't hang with you anymore.
Don't come to pick me up. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I have literally, for the elder one, I have 5 more years. So I want to make that count. So I try to keep my phone away. Especially at home, I literally switch to another device which is only on Wi-Fi. So I can access my email and everything, but I don't have this WhatsApp things coming in.
Yeah.
So I try to do that. Save some time, spend some time with the kids.
You give me a great idea of what I should do with that second phone I have right now, of what I should do. But I work from home, so that doesn't help it, because I'm always here. So, but I'll have to, I think this is an interesting idea that you've just given me. What can you put together in an instant?
Dream. I think a dream.
That's super interesting.
Yeah, because normally, I'll tell you why I said that. Maybe it's a reflection of what I just, my morning discussions. So typically my interactions at office happen with direct reporting, which means I miss the interaction with, the 23, 24-year-olds going from BMS and all, who basically for them everything is possible. But they are being asked to execute as hands and legs. So they sometimes stop thinking and just do. When I'm walking through the corridor, I keep bumping into them, right? So just I've realized just a couple of times when I bumped into them and said, so what are you working on? I casually ask you, what are you working on? And they ask something which is okay, but it's basically a landing pad for my next question. It's like, so what do you want to work on? And they are caught completely unaware. So dream, if you could do anything, what would you do?
Yeah.
So once a week or twice a week, I ask catch to unsuspecting people and I ask them this question, unfortunately. And yeah, that's led to some very interesting interactions. And maybe that's why this suddenly came up out of the blue.
Well, that's super interesting because I agree. We don't spend enough time just like allowing ourselves to dream and not just when we're asleep. And that's in all these episodes. I've not had a single guest say this, but it's so important for everyone to do on a daily basis, especially daydreaming, not just night dreaming.
Oh, yes. Otherwise, they're just executing all the time. So,
yeah. And what is slowly becoming my final question of the episode is that what's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten? I have a feeling you already told me this, but what's the best piece of advice you've gotten?
So, I mean, because I mentioned it, yes, I think it would be that, stepping back does not mean letting go. That's actually a big one. Actually a big one. Yeah. I mean, there are other, so there are things which aren't advice, but you hear them and they seem like gospel truth. Like, of course, some of the other ones which are cliched is like, if you want somebody to yearn for the sea, ask them to build a boat and all of that. So those make sense at some age in your life. But something that you pick up I'll sum it up. It is important to realize that no matter how much of a stud you are, you can't build what you want to build on your own. Can't.
Yeah.
So you want to build with people. But we normally stop there. I would ask, why would people want to build with you? And it's not always about people want to build with you if you give them the freedom, respect, recognition, love, and everything else. Right? So we don't think about all these. We are not coached to think about all of them. I think that statement which I made, it sort of triggered a lot of these thoughts, which I try to make time to think about.
Thank you so much, Kaushik. It's been fabulous to have you on the podcast. I'm so happy we could finally do this and hope to be in touch and catch up at some point of time. I'm sure we'll catch up in person as well.
No, I'm a big fan of all that you're building. I'll hope to definitely meet and catch up sometime. But thanks for having me.
And thanks for coming on Addressing Instead.
Thank you.
If you like this podcast and you want to listen to more podcasts like this, head over to the IVM Podcast website or app or wherever you get your podcast from and look at all the podcasts that IVM makes. There's some really fun stuff there.